Hi everyone. Let's start going through uh, the different parts of a web page. And to begin with, we're going to be looking at HTML. Many of you will have heard the term HTML. You may not know what it is. That's okay. We're going to go through that now. Okay. So a web page, as you probably know, consists of code. The main type of code, the most important version, is HTML. And that stands for Hypertext Markup Language. All right. So there's a little bit of a clue there. The hypertext part just means that it contains links. That was the big breakthrough when Tim Berners-Lee invented the web, that one web page could link to another. That was probably the single most important breakthrough there. Trivial as that might sound now at this distance. And the markup language part just means that it tells a web browser what to display on screen. It's not really a programming language as such. It's a markup language. So let's have a look at some of what HTML looks like. So what I've got on screen here is actually a real example of HTML. And it consists of a number of different things here. You can see these different sections here, these little pieces that are divided up with angle brackets like this. Okay, so here's one here. This is an HTML tag. So that tag begins with a left-hand angle bracket, has the name, which gives the type of tag that it is in the middle, and it closes with a right-hand angle bracket there. So that makes up a tag. All right. There are other things that you can put in there as well. And in fact, you can see a couple of examples of that on this page here. I'm not going to go into those in detail now. We will be coming to them in coming weeks. All right. So let's start at the top. It's a very good place to begin. It's actually where the web browser itself starts. Okay. So the web browser itself starts at the top, and just like us, it reads left to right, top to bottom. And it interprets and displays things in the order in which it finds them, just like we would. Okay, so starting at the top here, we have this little tag here, all in uppercase. Doesn't have to all be in uppercase, it's just sort of a convention that it usually is. This one again starts with a left-hand angle bracket. All right, there's only one of this particular type of tag on a page. It starts with an exclamation mark and it says doc type. So that means document type. And the type of document that we're dealing with, of course, is an HTML document, a web page. And so you put the word HTML there. Then a closing right-hand angle bracket just there. Okay, so that all of it together tells the web browser, we're dealing with an HTML document, a web page. All right, let's move on. So the next tag is the first one on the page that really creates what is called an HTML element. Now, most elements, not all, but most elements consist of two tags. So what we have here is we have an opening tag up here, which tells the web browser, Safari or Chrome or whatever, that the HTML content starts here. All right. Now, if we jump ahead to the bottom of the page, you'll see that that's answered with closing tag down here. It looks just the same, except that note that it has, after that first angle bracket, it has a / before again saying HTML and then having a closing angle bracket there. So that / just there, that's very, very important, because that does actually tell the web browser that the HTML content has come to an end. All right, and you'll find this pattern with most, again, not all, but most elements in HTML, that they have an opening tag and then a closing tag. All right, so that begins up here. Just after the doc type declaration, we have the opening HTML tag. All right, the next one that we can look at is the head tag. All right, so this head tag, again, it opens here, meaning it's put there with angle brackets and the word head, closing angle bracket, and then there's a closing tag. All right, and together they make up the head element. All right, so all of this bit here is actually what's called the head of the web page. Okay, starts here and finishes down here. And notice that between those two tags, we have more stuff. Okay, we'll be getting into what this second tag here means later. But just note that this one, for a start, has various things inside it, more than just the word link. Okay, this, by the way, is not how you link between web pages. This is really just for loading things into a web page. In this case, a file called styles.css that contains the styling information. This particular type of tag is one of those few tags that does not have a closing element. It's self-contained, a closing tag rather. So it's one tag making up a whole element. All right. But let's have a look at this one up here, title, because this is, after all, the first thing that the web browser would read after it reads the head section starts here. It has a look at the title. So we have a title tag here. Again, opening and closing angle brackets just around the word title. And so that's an opening tag. And over here we have a closing tag. All right. So unlike the head tag and in fact the HTML tags, these are all on the one line. All right. The web browser does not care whether things are all in one line or across multiple lines. You can put your whole web page across one line. Don't do that because it'll be confusing for you to read, but the computer doesn't care. All right. So note between this opening tag here and this closing tag here, we have these words, example page. So that text, those two words with the space in between them, that makes up the title of the page. Now, nothing that is inside the head section is actually displayed directly on screen in your web page, but the title is visible in the tab that you have in your web browser. So you see that at the top there. Okay. All right, so let's move on from the head. Let's have a look at the next section, which is, as you might guess, the body. Underneath the head is the body. All right. And again, we have an opening tag, a body tag here, and a closing tag down here. And that determines actually the real content, substance of your page. Okay. So let's keep going through this a little bit. I'm going to skip over a few things, but a couple of things that are worth pointing out. This little interesting looking thing here, it's displayed on my screen here in a gray. This is what's called an HTML comment. And you can write these wherever you like. These are more like little notes to yourself, or if you're working with other people, notes to your colleagues. These, in this instance, what this is doing is saying that the navigation section for my web page starts here. Okay. This sort of thing can be useful to do because when you have a big or particularly a very complex web page, I think it's very helpful to have little notes saying which bit is which. Just makes it easier to identify. Very handy for yourself, especially when you're coming back to your work after, a week's break, or, it might be longer. You might be picking up an old project months or years later and need to work out how it's all put together. So down here we have a navigation section. Okay, so again, we've got an opening nav tag, nav for navigation. We've got an attribute here, class equals nav primary. Okay, so this, I'm not going to go into that too much, but just suffice it to say that that's a little, what's called an attribute inside the tag. So it's still a nav tag, but this was a bit that you might choose to add in. In this case, it's giving it kind of a name or fitting it into a category, and that helps with styling it on screen. So determining, say, the background color behind your navigation, how big it is, where it is on the page, things like that. And these next tags, these A tags here, anchor tags, the closing tag there. Again, it has an attribute. All right, so these are names of different documents. These are actually links to other web pages. And we have the text that's actually displayed on screen for that link, home section, and another page called work. All right. Then we have, of course, the closing nav tag there. All right, so the important thing to take away is we have a little section here for navigation up here. All right, then we have another HTML content just here, page content. Again, the web browser just ignores that, but it's useful for you when you're writing HTML. And in here we have the actual content of the page. And this tag here, the H1 tag, that's for a top level heading. Okay, so in your typography classes, you are definitely learning about hierarchy of content on the page. The different heading tags, H1, H2, H3, how you do that in HTML. So your main heading, you only have one, as it starts with an H1 tag, that's the biggest heading. Here I have the words hello world. These are displayed on screen in large bold letters by default. And then we have a closing tag, and you can tell it's a closing tag again because after the first angle bracket, there's a forward slash, then the name of the tag, H1. So the heading starts here and finishes over here, and this text in between is actually the text of that heading. And then, as I mentioned before, here we have the body tag, just closing that section. All right. So let's break this down a little bit more. So we have here, we have the kind of thing that if you were to think of a human body as being a bit like a web page, the doc type declaration is telling the web page, right, it's not an HTML page in this case, it's a human or an illustration of a human. Right, let's not be picky. So we've got a doc type declaration up here, doc type human. All right, now there's no actual doc type human, but I think it helps to illustrate the point. Then over here, we can say, okay, all of this, starting here, going down to here, all right, that's where the HTML actually, what it really covers, everything that makes up our human here. Okay, and this is further divided, the actual divided up into a head section. We looked at that before. The head section, which, like our heads, is the bit that does a lot of the thinking and also the speaking. In this case, it's in the case of a head on a page, it contains various things. It contains the title tag. It can contain the styles that show how the page should be presented. We'll be dealing with that in coming weeks. And then underneath the head, of course, you have the body. All right. Now, of course, with an actual human being, you see all of it, including the head. You can see, but in the web page, the only bit that's displayed on screen actually is the body. All right. And you can further divide up the body, which is the real content of the page, into various sections. Okay. So I've got a couple of sections here, so the torso and the arms, and down here, so the pelvis and the legs, and at the bottom, the feet. And so your actual web pages will consist of different sections. There'll be a section, say, with your navigation, as we saw in the previous sort of slide. And there was also a section which contained just a heading. All right. But in practice, you will have more text, you'll have images, you'll have articles, and maybe links to other websites entirely, and so on. And typically also you'll have a little footer at the bottom, which might contain some information about the web page. You know, copyright notice, things of that sort. Okay, so if this human were HTML markup, this is what it might look like. Doctype human up here. The whole thing contained within HTML tags. So there's an opening tag there and a closing tag there. We have the head section containing a title. Okay, the title in this case saying this is a person. Then we have the body tag, a closing body tag. So this stuff here is actually the stuff that in a real web page is displayed on screen. We have the different sections, and I've just put in some comments here. This might be a useful reminder for me later. Do the code that does the arms or whatever the relevant content is. By the way, there's no such thing as a human doctype, of course, but all of these other tags are real. All right, there is a real tag called section. So it has an opening tag there and a closing tag there, and all together, as I said before, this makes up a section element. And this is inside the body element that we have here. Okay, the body element starting there and finishing there. And so for the sake of clarity, to make it easier to read, I've indented that. So this is everything that's inside the body element, that is between the opening and closing tags, is indented a little bit. Okay, so you can see at a glance that it belongs to that body element. All right, and if I had further stuff inside the section here, again, like this comment, I would indent it a little bit further. And so again, it makes it very, very easy to just look down the page and see what's what. So I have another section here, again with another comment, legs go here. And the footer, again with another HTML comment there. All right, so I think that's enough for now. In the next video, I'm going to go through the process of setting up a folder for building a website, and the process of making an HTML document and just viewing it locally on in a web browser. You don't need to actually have a web server running in order to do that.